W's involved a sum of W's of lower spins, and unless the coefficients appearing on the commutator impose the truncation, you would end up with these currents with negative spins. So the coefficients were engineered to specifically produce zeros, and I think that is why you have these 3f4 hypergeometric functions in the big W infinity. But here, just the absence of the higher spin. Here, when I'm saying spin, I mean the usual Minkowski spin. The higher spin massless particles, just having them to be zero somehow evades this.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, if you look at the structure of the algebra we found, this polynomial n is one factor which appears in the big W infinity, but the big W infinity is also multiplied by a hypergeometric function which is absent here. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Akshay. Let's now have Kaushik share his screen. So Kaushik, I will let you know when you are 20 minutes into the talk.
Okay, so I'm audible and visible, right?
Yes, you are. So welcome, Kaushik. We are very happy to have Kaushik Ray from ISCS, and he's going to tell us about quaternion Lauricella-like systems and conformal integrals. So over to you, Kaushik.
Okay, so let me first start by congratulating and thanking Alok and his team for putting a lot of effort into this conference, which is already showing by the smooth running of the conference. And let me also thank the other members of the NOC to give me this opportunity to speak. So today I want to discuss this quaternionic Lauricella-like systems and conformal integrals. This is a work done with my graduate student Aritra Pal, and the references are here. This is so as I said. So this is a computation of conformal integrals. So this is basically really an exercise in calculus. So so let me start from with some. So I'll start with some motivation discussions. Let me just make it presentation. Yeah. So here's the plan of the talk. So the desideratum is so this is in CFT. So we'll be desideratum is to obtain the correlation functions. So I'll start with that. Only in this half an hour, I hope to get up to half of this computation, which is the conformal integrals, and then I'll recall the conformal groups, and then I'll talk about the two-dimensional thing, which is very well known, and how Lauricella system appears, and then we'll generalize this to 4 dimensions and obtain Lauricella-like systems, and then I'll summarize. So so this is really redundant for this audience, but let me just start with this thesis notation as well. So so if I have a group, that symmetry group that acts on a space-time, some space-time M, then one can, and I have a quantum field theory whose partition function is given by this with an invariant action and this host terms. Then we know that the G acts on the fields as well as the currents, and the correlation functions, which are moments of Z, are actually given us. These are covariant with respect to this this group G, and so therefore correlation functions are obtained as representations of G for n different points, n points which are space-time points in the this x1, x2 is they belong to M. So basically a correlation function is can be obtained starting with representations of this so-called symmetry group. So that's what and the group in question for us today is a conformal group. So let me just recall that. So start with M, which is a Euclidean. We'll take this as a Euclidean space in n dimensions with a quadratic form given by this, the usual one. And we know that a conformal transformation is an angle-preserving transformation of M to itself. And if it's an orthogonal, we also know that a map which is orthogonal is orthogonal or a non-zero real multiple of an orthogonal transformation is conformal as well. So that we know, and this is the usual way of implementing the conformal group in quantum in conformal field theory. So we start with this M, which is Rn for us. Then you have this map. Everybody has seen this map. That so that maps it to this manifold M circ with two extra coordinates x, u, and v. So these are the u. This one is u, and this is v in this for this map. So, and in this M, you consider a homogeneous equation of these variables, which defines a projective manifold inside M circ. So then this is called a conformal compactification. This is within the projective. This is a projective compactification, and so this is called a conformal compactification of M. And from here, I can also go back the image. So this is the image of I, which is a may or may not be a proper subset of the conformal compactification. From here, I can project it back to M. So a conformal transformation is typically obtained as this map. So first, operate with I, go to M circ, take orthogonal transformations here, and then project it back. So this is what it is. So first I, then T, and then pi. And this I induces an injective map, of course, from M to this conformal compactification. And this conformal transformations, as you see here, so here pi Ti or IT pi for that matter, in that order, they're in 1-to-1 with the orthogonal transformations T of the null cone, which is a conformal compactification in two higher dimensions, which is in X, U, and V. So this is the usual way of implementing conformal group in conformal field theory. And the conformal group of M is defined as the connected component containing the identity in the group of conformal diffeomorphisms of the of C, the conformal compactification that I just defined. And this is by Liouville theorem given by the Mobius group. Everyone knows about this. So, and the conformal group of R4, that is the what basically is our interest today, is SL2H, H being the set of quaternions. So this is, as we'll see, this will be this action of the conformal group in R4 will be given in terms of SL2 valued in the quaternions. As an analogy, for R2 we know is much more complicated. All we'll use for the, today is the group SL2C acting on C by Mobius transformation. So I'll start with that and define or describe the Lauricella system in this particular case where I have SL2C in R2, and then I'll generalize to the 4-dimensional case. Now, coming to the representation. So now, we said, so in a conformal field theory, if I want to find out correlation functions with a symmetry group, which is a conformal group, I need to construct representations of the conformal group. Now, just to recall, the representation of G for any group for that matter on a manifold that acts on a manifold is given in terms of so-called good functions. We have to define what good functions are. In some cases, it can be analytic functions. Some cases it might be smooth functions. So if it acts on the manifold, it has an action on the manifold, then one takes good functions which are covariant under this group, and that defines representations of the group. Now, for n different points on M, there are two things to consider. The usual way of going about this problem is take the tensor product of representations of G on the manifold. For example, take the conformal group on M, Ra or Rn, and take the write down the representation, take the tensor product, and most of the results that we have been obtained using this method. So today I want to do this computation, and also there's some advantage of this. Not using this tensor product, but first going over to the so-called configuration space of n points on the manifold. So this is we know from classical mechanics. So I have a n number of points moving around in a manifold, and I can talk about the configuration space of n number of points on this manifold, and then look for good functions on that configuration space of points of M, and then try to look for representations there. So that's the strategy for today. And for the configuration space of points, we'll need to choose a model, because we'll be talking about integrals in this. So the required kind of compactification or completion of the space, and I'll define this. So I'll take what is called a Fulton-MacPherson completion of configuration space. I'll define this later. So that is more or less the wisdom that I have about this, and now I'll show you formulas. So now over to Lauricella systems in 2 dimensions. So on the on this configuration space, which in 2 dimension is also essentially coincides with the projective compactification. So let me not complicate matters for 2D. So here in the configuration space of n number of points on C, I have this n number of points Z1 to Zn. One can define this integral. Mu's are called weights. Mu's are typically between 0 and 1. And this integration is over a contour from one Zi to another Zj, such that the contour doesn't include or enclose another third Zi. Now, if you define this, these are invariant under translation clear of Z by a constant. These are also homogeneous of degree 1 minus sum of mu. And these are germs of Lauricella functions. Lauricella functions, as we know, are generalizations of hypergeometric Gaussian hypergeometric functions in multiple variables. The first one, if it's 1 variable, we call it hypergeometric. In 2 variables, we have 4 Appel functions, and the 3 and onwards are called Lauricella in general. This, so this integral obeys the differential equation. This is of the Lauricella system. This equation is actually obtained by very simply by taking derivatives of I, this integral, with respect to Zi within the integral sign, and using this identity. This is a trivial identity actually, where in this I have denoted Zi minus Zj as Zij. So this is, you see, a second order differential equation in terms of this where the variables are Zis. And this is called a Lauricella system, and the solutions are called Lauricella functions. And we want to, so these are good. We claim that one knows that these are good functions on the configuration space, and we want to find out representations of SL2C out of these guys. So the action of SL2C action is Mobius, and the Mobius group acts on the correlation functions as this. So I have an endpoint correlation function that goes over to transforms with these factors coming from the denominator of the Mobius, CZ1. For each of the points, I have one factor, and with some conformal weights, capital, which I'll denote by capital deltas. So this is how it transforms. Now you can check that under this Mobius transformation, the Zij, which was Zi minus Zj, transforms as this with a weight 1 or minus 1, and I mu transforms as this with the mu's coming up here, provided I have sum of mu equal to 2 and the degree of homogeneity then is minus 1. This also incorporates the point infinity, and so this didn't have the infinity. So when I try to, when I make it the sum of mu's to 2, it incorporates infinity. And at this point, I call I mu, this integral, the conformal integral. And now holomorphic representations of the Mobius group can be constructed out of, you see, these Zij's and this I mu. That's clear. Now I'll take certain powers of Zij and certain powers of and start with and multiply with I mu, and I can always construct representations of the conformal group in 2 dimensions, the Mobius group in 2 dimensions. And here are examples. This is the for n equal to 2. The only allowed mu's are 1 and 1, and you have this degree of homogeneity minus 1. For 3 is the usual results follows. And as everyone knows that for higher than 3 points, there's invariants called cross ratios which complicate this matter. So let's define something called chi ijkl as this combination. This can also be written in terms of another kind of variables. I'll come back to this later. This is called a variables ij by ik. Right. So these are invariants of the Mobius group. That if you go back to the transformation, you see that Mobius group acts by on ij as I and j. And if you see here, I have one I, one j here, one I, one j here. So that cancels, and this is true for every index. And you see here in the 3 and 2 point functions, there was no conformal integral. 4 onwards, the conformal integrals appeared. Now I have to basically solve. So if I wanted to, here's the point. I want to evaluate or obtain the Liouville functions, and to do that, one defines. Now, out of the chi's that I defined, these ratios, not all of them are independent. They have relations between them. So suppose I define the independent cross ratios with another symbol psi, and there'll be a certain number of them. I will so that number of xi's is given by this index a. So I have, and xi's are defined by zij to the power alpha ij, and alpha ij is symmetric, and then has this condition that the sum is 0. That gives the scale invariance of zij, invariance of this under Mobius transformation as well. And here's the integral, and as we said, this integral is a good function on the configuration space. I can, and so this, and now I promoted it to a representation of SL2C. So I take this ansatz that it's given actually by a function of the invariance xi's and some factor zij to the power beta ij, so that and beta ij's are constant to have appropriate transformations under the Mobius. But remember, this beta ij's are artifact of the ansatz and shouldn't appear in the final formula, and that we'll see that that's the case. So it has beta satisfy some constraints related to the mu's themselves. And now if you plug this in, this xi is and this ansatz in the Liouville differential equation, you get this. This is complicated. I don't want you to remember this. Only thing to see note here is that this is given in terms of the alphas, which are the indices of the invariance, betas, which are here in the ansatz of the conformal integrals, and this is a second order differential equation in terms of xi's, the cross ratios, and all the chi's which are invariants are either xi's or their functions. So this is a well-defined set of second order differential equations, and they can be solved in cases like for the n equal to 4, there's only one cross ratio, and you can solve it with conformal integral, 4-point conformal integral in terms of the zij to the power stuff and Gauss hypergeometry function. In the n equal to 5 case, you have two cross ratios, and you can solve the this in terms of this invariance. And so this is the invariant part, and this is the zij to the power beta part. These F2s are the second Appel functions. So you can solve it in terms of Appel functions, and there are four germs of this Appel function, and there are 4 arbitrary constants with which you can add them. In the correlation function, of course, you'll have to choose certain germs using the monodromy. I'll not get into that. The important thing to note here is that there's no beta, there's no allusion to beta in these formulas, only mu's, as one should have. So now with that, so this basically, this was to set up the Liouville system and show that this in 2 dimensions, I have representations of SL2C in terms of these conformal integrals, and conformal integrals can be obtained as Liouville functions. I'll now try to take this and use this as an analogy to work in 4 dimensions. So in 4 dimensions, as I said, the conformal, the Mobius group is actually SL2H, H being the set of quaternions. So now my space is R4 with an infinity. And these formulas that I have shown apply mutatis mutandis to 4 dimensions. The reason being, I can write a complex number Z as this 2 by 2 matrix, where x and y are the real and imaginary parts of a complex number x plus iy, and that goes over to a quaternion. I can so in terms of two complex numbers u and v. Yeah, so I can take u as if I write u and v as two complex numbers with q0, q1, q2, and q3. This also is one-to-one with a 4 vector, as we this is also well known. And now here's a notation. The norm squared of this vector will be denoted, will be given by the determinant of this matrix q, and yeah, this is the usual notation, and this is the volume form. D q0 wedge 1 wedge 2 is 3. So with this, let me also recall how this conformal integral comes in the computation of correlation functions. So what you do is you start with the endpoint correlation function, and then parse it in groups of 3 using this operator I, where pi's are projectors. You see that pi satisfies this relation. This is nothing but actually, this is actually can be written in terms of a shadow operator. I just chose to write both the integrals here so that it's slightly easier to work with this in this form, because I can choose to do whatever integral q or q prime as I want, depending on what I want to do. So if you did that, so start with the correlation function, parse it using this in terms of in groups of 3, you see that the correlation function has this generic form. It has factors of qij with certain powers, and the conform this integral here I mu n in terms of q, where these are the q minus q1 determinant to the power mu1, etc. This is the volume form that I defined. Yeah, so this turns out to be generic form. Here you might have sums, other sums and integrals, etc. So what you essentially do is, after parsing, you have for each of the i's you have certain variables. Keep on integrating on those over those variables until you are left with a single integration variable, and then you get.
Excuse me, Kaushik.
I'm sorry.
Just to let you know, you are 20 minutes into the talk.
Okay, so I'll try to. Oh, yeah. So here's the translation from the 2D. Oops. So this was the 2D conformal integral, which has now generalized to this. This was the identity that was required to derive the Lauricella equation, and here's the identity that generalizes to this. And this was the Lauricella system. This also, and the same procedure that I take derivatives of with respect to q1s, qi's here, and use this identity now, and I get this. This is what I called a Lauricella-like system in 4 dimensions. This is not a Lauricella system. So I call it Lauricella-like, but the computation is exactly similar. So to summarize, we have these integrals. These are and they satisfy these differential equations. This is a Lauricella-like system. I have to now solve this. So now let me just give a one-slide introduction, definition of Halton-McPherson completion of the configuration space. You start with n number of distinct points on the manifold M, which is R4 union infinity for us, and then you embed this space into a space like this, where M, this is the n number of copies of the manifold M. Here I'm talking, we are in R4, so here's the S3, the 3 sphere, n by choose 2 of them, given in terms of these coordinates, and then these guys, which are given by the aij's that I introduced earlier, even for the in 2 dimensions. These are given by qij by qik, and now you see that it includes 0, so this gives you a compactification actually. Now, this is a description of the Halton-McPherson compactification of the configuration space. Now you see, I mean, we are talking. So I want to. So the integral I mu n is interpreted as a good function on this, and I want to construct representations in terms of those. Since this part will go away because I require translation invariance. this part will go away because they have Qij's, and unless we have spinors or vectors, we'll not require them. So everything will be described in terms of this Aij case. So to see that, so here's the action of the conformal group. Now SL2H, H being so this A, B, C, D are in the at quaternary in H, and the condition AD minus BC, the determinant condition generalizes to this AC inverse DC minus BC, and the good functions on so, and you can also check that this determinant of Qij transforms like this, and mu I mu n also transforms with this, with now the condition and sum of mu changes to 4, and one can construct representations of SL2H out of this. And here are examples once again, that for n equal to 2 and n equal to 3, again we have a very similar structure. For n equal to 4 onwards, we define again new quaternions, chi ij kl, and their determinant is an invariant. So this chi ij is this is a quaternion, this is not a determinant. This is the determinant of this, and I can rewrite them in terms of this A variables of Fulton-McPherson compactification, and some of them, as before, are chosen as independent ones. So I choose the independent cross ratios as here with again an alpha satisfying the same conditions as before. And I also now I have interpreted this integrals, this conformal integrals, as good functions on the configuration space of Fulton-McPherson completion, and thus I can choose this answer. This actually, so the choice of answers is justified by the fact that we are working on this Fulton-McPherson completion of the configuration space. So I take this as this differences Qij to the power some beta and the invariant part. And again, beta is an artifact, it shouldn't appear. Now, take these answers once again and plug in the Lauricella-like differential equation. One can see that this is after doing that, after some calculations, the invariant part satisfies this differential equation where I have defined this Lig operator here. Again, only thing to remember is that this is defined in terms of the determinant of the invariance, the chi's, and the alphas coming from here, and the betas coming from the ansatz of the conformal integral. Yeah, so with a certain number of AB, which is I called N0, and N0 is actually n into n minus 3 by 2, and these are the logarithmic derivatives with respect to the cross ratios. Now, important thing is that there are n into n minus 3 by 2 equations, because Lij, if you interchange Lij, it gives the same equations, and the sum of them, this Lij operators is 0, so that takes away another one. So now there's an observation. The observation is the following. This operator Lij acting on the invariant can also be rewritten in terms of another set of operators with 4 indices now, and I have now defined theta ij as the logarithmic derivative with respect to the Qij, determinants of Qij, and one can write the Lij acting on the invariant as this sum of Lijk's acting on the conformal integral. I have written these two sums separately because it turns out that if you want to derive this relation, it's easier to first sum over this, then over this, and then subtract. Otherwise, you can prove it, it becomes just complicated. So now that essentially means if we can simultaneously solve these equations coming here, all of them, we have a conformal integral. So that's the interesting observation here. So I started with this equation. This came from the Lauricella-like system by putting in the ansatz, and then I rewrite it in terms of the sums, and from there I see that if I can solve this, so all of them simultaneously, I have a conformal integral. So now this is done using some toric geometry. So let me just describe this in brief. That if you look at this transformation of the Qij's, see that Qij in the transformation has one factor which involves I, one factor which involves j, and the powers are -1. So I have written down this in a table. So Qij as it transforms, Q1, 2, 1, 3, and 1, 4 will have one factors in Q1, Q12 will have a 1 factor in Q2, this 1 factor. 1, 3 has a 1 factor in 1, 3, not in 2 and 4, and so on and so forth. So this gives me a rectangular matrix all the time. This is n into n minus 1 by 2 by n matrix, determined by these weights of the Mobius transformations on the QIGs. The kernel of this, or the set of null vectors of this, give the invariance. And these are they determine the cross ratios. So for example, for this matrix, Mathematica gives you this kernel. It has 2 vectors in the, and I choose this as the basis. And the cross ratios corresponding to these are given by, these are identified as alpha. So Q12 with a 1, Q134 with a 1, 14 and 23 come with -1s. And similarly for the other cross ratios, Xi2. So I have 2 cross ratios for this case. Now, given a rectangular matrix of this kind and its kernel, there's something called a GKZ, Gelfand-Kapranov-Zalevinsky A hypergeometric system, which is defined in terms of this. Here, AI, JK are these components. So this is I, this is JK. So these are the differential equations. Alpha ij and minus alpha ij come here because so the positive components of alphas will appear here. The negative components of alpha will appear here. So that essentially means, so these are the positive components for this vector. These are the negative components for this vector. They will appear here and here. So the operators acting on F form an ideal in the Weyl algebra corresponding to the matrix of the toric data that I described. And again, now the observation is that given a rectangular matrix A with a basis of kernel, these actually imply this Lij K L acting on F is 0. So this is the same operator as this.
Sorry,
so this is another observation.
Yeah, it's been 30 minutes, so please try to finish.
Oh, I'm almost done.
Okay.
Maybe, can I get 1 more minute?
Sure.
Yeah. So that I'm done. So basically, this is what happens. So if you can solve this GKZ hypergeometric system, you have. So this is the examples for this particular case, which is n equal to 4. You have 4 of these quaternions. It's the solution is obtained as this, which is has this leg factors 1, Q, 1, 2, etc. And this is a function of the invariance. I have 2 invariants. I have this infinite series, which is a GKZ hypergeometric system. For 5 points, it's slightly bigger. There are 5 cross ratios, independent invariants. And this is given in terms of, is by this. In the paper, we also have given the case for n equal to 6, which is bigger. But generally, this is the pattern. This is what you get in general. You can, so these are the leg factors. There's no beta anywhere, only mu's, and n0 is this. And Pn0 is always a series with a certain number of x's, which the n0 number of cross ratios. So to summarize, we have talked about conformal integrals, how it appear in the computation of correlation functions. And in 2D, the conformal integrals transforming under the Mobius are obtained a solution to a Lauricella system. And in 4th dimension, we generalize it to a Lauricella-like system with a conformal group SL2 on the quaternions. Conformal integrals are now interpreted with, as a good function, and the choice of ansatz is justified by taking them on the Fulton-MacPherson completion of the compactification of the configuration space. The Lauricella-like system is solved using the GKZ A hypergeometric functions in general. So this is what we described. And this is the future in the future LightCon. So we are now this one knows that this Fulton-MacPherson is also described in terms of graph complexes, and so we expect that this is going. This might have a role to play, might be useful in implementing Bootstrap. One most issue is that we have seen that from the kernel computation we have n into n minus 3 by 2 number of cross ratios all the time, but we know that for n equal to 4 for n greater than 7. Greater than equal to 7, the number of cross ratios grow linearly in n rather than quadratically. So this supposed to probably mean relations among the cross ratios. We are looking into that. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Kaushik, for an interesting talk. We have time for only one question. So, Somdatta, go ahead.
Yeah, so could you go back to the slide where you gave the expression for the IN in terms of the integrals over the Qs for the SL2H system, for the 4D system?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here, how do you do these integrals? Because for the Z, if it was just Z, then you could have done it in terms of contour integrals. But how do you do the integrals?
Yeah, okay, that's an interesting question. So, in principle, I should do this over a shell, but you cannot evaluate this integral. That's the reason I went to write differential equations for this. And these are singular integrals. Now I have a differential equation, right? So I solve these equations and it's not a single valued function. This will have germs like Laurentian or hypergeometric functions. And this constructs a local system. Yeah. So I'm not going to evaluate these integrals. The integrals are to be interpreted as integrals over shells, but direct evaluation is very difficult. So yeah, that's why this whole technique.
That's correct. But for the Z system, for when you had the Z integrals, you had these identities in terms of the Zs, right? Which allowed you to write down this equation that you have, this differential equation.
Yeah. So I
what is the here?
Oh, sorry, I'm going the wrong direction. This one.
Okay.
So sorry, I went fast over this. So every relation translates.
So this identity satisfies even if you replace Z by the Qs.
Remember Qs are matrices, so they have to be in proper position. Yes. And that's why you see when I take the derivatives, I have written the B, C, etc. These are the matrix components of the quaternions.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
So maybe one more question quickly we can take. Alok, if you can keep your question brief, please.
Yeah. Hi, Kaushik. Thanks for the talk. I just had a conjecture, and I mean, I wanted your comment on it. I mean, this description that you have of these conformal integrals, the GKZ system and the Laurentian system, I mean, it literally seems to be crying out that there should be a map of this problem to a corresponding problem in algebraic geometry, where you rewrite this as the Picard-Fuchs equation for the period vector of a toric variety in maybe the large complex structure.
Yeah. I didn't want to get into that, but if you look at this, the form of this toric data that I'm writing, these are actually okay. One thing to remember is that these xi's we have are actually real numbers.
Okay, so this could be restrictions of the complex
that's
structure.
Right. But if I allowed complex numbers and use the same toric data, I would be doing what you exactly told the periods of Grassmann variety. These are like embedding of certain number of depending on what number of rows you have, certain number of vectors in a P to Pn of some kind.
In fact, I would venture to say that this could be mapped to a problem of calculating a Picard-Fuchs equation from
these are the Picard.
Yeah,
these are the Picard-Fuchs equation.
Right.
Once I'm writing are the Picard-Fuchs equation in that case for this Grassmannian varieties given by this toric data.
Right. So the F could be mapped to actually a period integral expressed as a path integral using the Hori-Vafa description. So it could be a beautiful map. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Let's thanks, Kaushik. If you could unshare.